Welcome back to Real Life Documentary, a channel that gives you documentaries based on real-life happenings. Please support us by subscribing to our YouTube channel. Now to today's episode. Lucy Stevens was born into a world of privilege as the only child of a powerful real estate mogul. Her upbringing was marked by an elite lifestyle, filled with private schools, equestrian activities, and high society events. From a young age, she was taught the importance of maintaining a perfect public image, a lesson that came to define much of her life. Despite the outward appearance of a charmed existence, Lucy's home life was emotionally distant. Her father's high expectations and her mother's constant criticism left little room for genuine affection. Finding refuge in her studies, Lucy excelled academically and developed a passion for art history. Her hard work led her to an Ivy League university, where she thrived academically, but faced difficulties socially. The pressure to uphold her family's image while trying to discover her own identity caused tension in her personal life. She struggled with relationships, often choosing partners who provided the excitement and attention she craved rather than the stability she thought she wanted. It was during this period that Lucy met Finn Callaway. Drawn to his calm confidence and sincerity, Lucy believed he could provide the life she had always been told to aspire to. As their relationship deepened, she convinced herself that Finn was the solution to her internal struggles, the key to becoming the person she was supposed to be. However, as their wedding day neared, Lucy's old insecurities began to resurface, leaving her unsure and restless about the life she was stepping into. The carefully crafted facade Lucy had built was beginning to crumble, exposing the complicated and conflicted woman beneath. In contrast to Lucy's privileged life, Finn Callaway grew up in a much more humble environment. The son of a small-town doctor and a high school English teacher, Finn was raised in a tight-knit community that valued hard work, honesty, and loyalty over material success. From a young age, Finn showed a natural talent for science and a deep curiosity about the world around him. His parents nurtured this interest, encouraging him to explore and question everything. Summer vacations were filled with camping trips and visits to science museums, which helped foster Finn's growing passion for environmental conservation. Despite his academic excellence, Finn remained humble and was well-liked by his peers. He was the type of person who would tutor struggling classmates or volunteer at the local animal shelter, without seeking recognition. His genuine kindness and integrity became defining traits throughout his life. Finn's hard work earned him a scholarship to a prestigious university, where he pursued a degree in environmental science. During his time at university, Finn grew close to his cousin, Asher Callaway, despite their different backgrounds. Asher came from the wealthier side of the family, but Finn often served as a calming influence on his more impulsive cousin. After graduation, Finn's passion for conservation led him to work for a non-profit organization focused on protecting endangered species. Finn's work in environmental conservation took him to some of the most remote corners of the world, where he experienced the breathtaking beauty of nature, alongside the devastating effects of human activities on fragile ecosystems. These encounters only strengthened his determination to make a positive impact. It was during a fundraising event for his organization that he first met Lucy Stevens. Immediately captivated by her beauty and intelligence, what truly touched Finn was her hidden vulnerability, which made him feel he could offer her the love and stability she needed. As their relationship grew, Finn believed he had found his ideal partner, someone who shared his values and could challenge him intellectually. He envisioned a future filled with shared adventures and a common mission. The proposal seemed like a natural next step, and Finn eagerly threw himself into planning a life with Lucy. However, the foundation of trust that Finn valued so deeply was about to be shaken, testing not only his beliefs but also the core of who he was. Enter Asher Callaway, the black sheep of the family, a role he embraced rather than resented. Born into the wealthy side of the Callaway family, Asher had access to every material comfort, but his life lacked the emotional stability he craved. His father, a high-powered corporate lawyer, was mostly absent, and his mother found refuge in social events and prescription medications. Left to his own devices, Asher developed a rebellious streak, using his charm and good looks to manipulate others and engage in increasingly risky behavior without facing the consequences. Despite his troubled home life, Asher possessed sharp intelligence and a natural charisma that drew people to him. He excelled academically when he chose to apply himself, but more often he was leading his peers into mischief. It was during one of these adventures that he first bonded with his cousin Finn, who was visiting during a summer break. Finn's steady presence and genuine concern for Asher made a deep impression. For the first time, Asher felt truly seen and valued, not just for his family name or ability to entertain, but for who he was. This connection with Finn became a lifeline for Asher, one of the few stable relationships in his otherwise chaotic life. As they grew older, their paths diverged. While Finn pursued his passion for environmental science, Asher drifted through college, switching majors and never quite finding his purpose. He eventually landed a job at a startup tech company, more for the lifestyle it provided than any real passion for the work. Asher's personal life was equally turbulent, filled with a series of failed relationships that left him cynical about love. Still, he sought validation through romantic conquests, earning a reputation as a charming rogue who left broken hearts behind him. When Finn introduced Asher to Lucy, something changed in Asher's world. Here was a woman who matched him in wit and complexity, someone who understood the pressures of coming from a prominent family. What began as harmless flirting quickly developed into a dangerous attraction, one Asher knew he should resist, but felt powerless to stop. As the wedding day approached, Asher found himself increasingly torn between his loyalty to Finn and his growing feelings for Lucy. This internal conflict brought out the worst in him, leading to erratic behavior and a sense of desperation that would eventually play a role in the tragic events that followed. The engagement of Finn Callaway and Lucy Stevens had become the social event of the season. Finn had proposed on a moonlit beach during a conservation trip to Costa Rica, offering Lucy an ethically sourced diamond ring that symbolized his love and his values. Swept up in the romance and the promise of a stable future, Lucy had said yes without hesitation. News of their engagement spread quickly through their social circles. The Stevens family was thrilled that Lucy had finally chosen a suitable partner, although they found Finn's dedication to nonprofit work a bit quaint. Meanwhile, the Callaways welcomed Lucy warmly, charmed by her sophistication and apparent devotion to Finn. As the couple began planning their wedding, the first cracks in their relationship started to show. Influenced by her mother and years of societal expectations, Lucy pushed for a grand, lavish event that would be the talk of the town. Finn, with his modest upbringing and environmental values, preferred a smaller, more intimate celebration. Their compromises often felt one-sided, with Finn reluctantly agreeing to a larger guest list and a more extravagant venue than he was comfortable with. He justified these concessions as acts of love, wanting Lucy to have the wedding of her dreams. However, Lucy began to feel a growing sense of resentment, interpreting Finn's reluctance as a lack of excitement about their union. As the wedding day drew nearer, the stress of planning weighed heavily on them, straining their relationship further. As the wedding day drew closer, Lucy became increasingly irritable, snapping at Finn over minor details like the shade of the table linens or the choice of wines. Finn, in an effort to maintain peace, distanced himself by immersing himself in his work, leaving much of the wedding planning to Lucy. During this turbulent time, Asher began to play a larger role in their lives. Always ready with a joke or a comforting word, he became a confidant to both Finn and Lucy. Finn, grateful for his cousin's support, failed to notice the lingering glances between Asher and Lucy or the subtle touches that lasted just a little too long. Lucy found herself eagerly anticipating Asher's visits, enjoying the excitement and unpredictability he brought to her increasingly structured life. She convinced herself that her attraction to Asher was merely a result of pre-wedding nerves, a natural reaction to the stress of planning such a significant event. As the wedding day approached, the tension between Finn and Lucy reached a breaking point. A heated argument over the seating arrangements left Lucy in tears and Finn storming out of their apartment. It was Asher who came to comfort her, bringing along a bottle of expensive champagne and offering a sympathetic ear. That night, as Lucy confided in Asher about her fears and doubts, something shifted between them. The boundary between comfort and desire blurred, and in a moment of weakness they shared a kiss. This single act set off a chain of events that would ultimately lead to tragedy. The next morning, Lucy was overwhelmed with guilt, but couldn't deny the passion she felt. She convinced herself that what Finn didn't know wouldn't hurt him, and that she could indulge in one last thrill before settling into married life. Little did she realize that her carefully constructed world was on the brink of collapsing. The affair between Lucy Stevens and Asher Callaway ignited like a spark in dry tinder, quickly consuming all sense of reason and caution. What started as lingering touches and stolen glances soon escalated into secret meetings and passionate encounters. Their first rendezvous took place under the pretense of wedding planning, when Lucy asked Asher to help her pick out a surprise gift for Finn, though she knew her intentions were far from innocent. They met at an upscale hotel bar, a place where discretion was guaranteed. As they sat close together, pretending to browse a catalog of watches, the tension between them became undeniable. When Asher's hand brushed against Lucy's, the pretense fell away, and without a word, they headed to a room Asher had reserved just in case. Later that night, as Lucy lay beside an unsuspecting Finn, she told herself it had been a one-time mistake, a moment of weakness that would never happen again. But the thrill of the forbidden proved too intoxicating to resist. Lucy and Asher developed an intricate system of coded messages and alibis. A text about flower arrangements signaled a meeting at their hotel, while a call about suit fittings meant a rendezvous at Asher's apartment. They became skilled at stealing moments together. A quick tryst in Lucy's office, a passionate encounter in Asher's car parked in a secluded spot. The risk of being caught only heightened the excitement, pushing them further down a dangerous path. There were several close calls that left Lucy and Asher breathless with a mix of fear and exhilaration. Once, Finn nearly walked in on them during a family dinner, where Lucy and Asher had slipped away to the coat closet for a heated embrace. Another time, one of Lucy's friends spotted them holding hands at a cafe across town, forcing them to craft an elaborate lie about planning a surprise party for Finn. As the wedding day approached, the intensity of their affair only grew. Lucy began comparing Finn to Asher, always finding her fiancé lacking. Asher was spontaneous, while Finn was predictable. Asher was dangerous and Finn was safe. Lucy started to question everything about her relationship with Finn, and the life she had planned with him. Asher, meanwhile, found himself falling deeper than he ever intended. What had begun as a conquest, just another notch on his belt, turned into something much more. He started to imagine a future with Lucy, one where they could be together openly. The fact that this future would come at the expense of his cousin's happiness was something he chose to ignore. In quieter moments, both Lucy and Asher were consumed by guilt. They knew the pain their actions would cause if discovered, the lives they would destroy. But in the heat of passion, those concerns faded away, eclipsed by their overwhelming desire for one another. As the weeks passed, the line between fantasy and reality began to blur. They made promises to each other they knew they couldn't keep, spoke of a love that was doomed from the start. And all the while, the date of Lucy and Finn's wedding loomed ever closer, a ticking time bomb that neither Lucy nor Asher knew how to defuse. Finn, who had always prided himself on his intuition, remained blissfully unaware of the storm brewing around him. Finn had always relied on his intuition and ability to read people, skills that served him well in his conservation work, where he navigated complex negotiations and delicate ecosystems. Yet when it came to the betrayal brewing right under his nose, he found himself uncharacteristically blind. The first signs were subtle, easy to dismiss. Lucy's sudden obsession with her phone, quickly ending calls when Finn entered the room, and her increasing irritability, which she attributed to wedding stress. There was also the unfamiliar cologne that lingered on her clothes, which she explained away as belonging to a new coworker at the gallery. It was Asher's behavior, however, that finally triggered Finn's suspicions. His cousin, who was usually eager to be involved in their lives, began making excuses to avoid family gatherings. When he did attend, there was a nervous energy about him, a guilty look that crossed his face whenever he glanced at Lucy. Finn tried to dismiss his doubts, telling himself he was being paranoid, but the uneasy feeling only grew stronger with time. He started paying closer attention, noticing how Lucy and Asher seemed to communicate without words, sharing inside jokes that excluded him. Unable to confront his fears directly, Finn embarked on his own investigation. He began doing things he never imagined, checking Lucy's phone while she showered, scanning credit card statements for unexplained charges, even driving by Asher's apartment late at night to see if Lucy's car was parked there. Every new piece of evidence felt like a knife twisting in his gut. The final blow came when he found a receipt for 2 glasses of champagne at a hotel bar on a night Lucy had told him she was working late. Finn's suspicions deepened when he discovered a text message from Asher on Lucy's phone that simply read, "Missing you," quickly deleted. Then at a family dinner he noticed a lipstick smudge on Asher's collar, the exact shade Lucy wore. As the wedding day approached, Finn found himself trapped in a spiral of suspicion and denial. He wanted desperately to believe in Lucy's love, to trust in the future they had planned, but the mounting evidence was becoming impossible to ignore. The weight of his doubts was crushing him. Finn's inner turmoil began to affect his behavior. He became distant and distracted, often losing track of conversations. His work, once his passion, now felt meaningless in the shadow of his personal crisis. Friends and family noticed the change, attributing it to pre-wedding jitters, unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. 2 weeks before the wedding, Finn reached his breaking point. He decided to confront Lucy, hoping for some innocent explanation for the troubling behavior he had observed. One evening in their shared apartment, as Lucy was busy finalizing wedding preparations, Finn initiated a serious conversation. His voice, filled with emotional turmoil, trembled as he directly questioned her about her relationship with Asher. Lucy responded with practiced composure, feigning innocence and dismissing Finn's concerns. But Finn could see the subtle signs of her discomfort, the way her hands fidgeted, her eyes avoiding his. As Finn laid out the evidence before her, the secretive phone calls, the unexplained absences, and the guilty looks, Lucy's explanations grew more elaborate and defensive. She insisted that Finn was overreacting, blaming the stress of the wedding for his suspicions. She emphasized her love for him and questioned why she would ever jeopardize their relationship. Despite her denials, Finn could sense that something was deeply wrong. As the confrontation escalated, Lucy suggested calling Asher to corroborate her stories. Finn watched her nervousness as she dialed and put the call on speaker. Asher's voice filled the room, smoothly backing up Lucy's claims and providing alibis for every suspicious incident Finn mentioned. The united front presented by Lucy and Asher left Finn feeling drained and defeated. Their seamless coordination in denying his accusations only deepened his fears and suspicions. By the end of the conversation, Lucy tried to reconcile, attributing Finn's concerns to wedding-related stress. She urged him to focus on their upcoming nuptials. Finn, unable to articulate his feelings, merely nodded in response. As he looked into Lucy's eyes, he realized that everything had changed. The trust that had once formed the foundation of their relationship was irreparably damaged, and with it, the future he had envisioned began to crumble. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and clear, a perfect day for a celebration of love. But within the luxurious bridal suite of the Rosewood Hills estate, the atmosphere was anything but joyous. Lucy sat at the ornate vanity, surrounded by her bridesmaids, who fussed over her hair and makeup. Her reflection stared back at her, pale and drawn, despite the expertly applied cosmetics. The weight of her deception pressed down on her, making it hard to breathe in her intricately beaded gown. Across the estate, in a smaller room designated for the groom's party, Finn stood motionless as his best man adjusted his bow tie. His face was a mask of calm, betraying none of the turmoil raging within. The decision he had made in the dark hours of the morning felt both terrifying and inevitable. Asher arrived late, slipping into the room with an apologetic smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Finn watched his cousin in the mirror, noting the nervous energy radiating from him. Their eyes met briefly, but Asher quickly looked away, unable to hold Finn's steady gaze. As the hours passed and the ceremony drew closer, the tension in both rooms mounted. Lucy fought back tears, threatening to ruin her carefully applied mascara, while Finn's hands trembled slightly as he fastened his grandmother's watch, a family heirloom he had once envisioned passing down to his future son with Lucy. Outside, guests began to arrive, blissfully unaware of the emotional chaos unfolding behind closed doors. Excited chatter and laughter filled the air as the string quartet played gentle melodies, a stark contrast to the turmoil within. The wedding planner's voice announced it was time to take their places, sending 3 hearts racing with a mix of dread and anticipation. The moment of truth had arrived. The grand ballroom of Rosewood Hills had been transformed into a floral wonderland, with garlands of white roses and delicate baby's breath adorning every surface. Their sweet scent wafted through the air as sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting a warm glow over the assembled guests. As the music swelled, all eyes turned to the back of the room. Finn stood at the altar, his face a mask of unreadable emotion as he watched the bridal party make their way down the aisle. Asher, standing beside him as best man, shifted uncomfortably, darting his gaze between Finn and the entrance. Then the bridal march began, and Lucy appeared in the doorway. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. She was a vision in white, her gown a masterpiece of lace and silk that seemed to float gracefully around her. As Lucy moved down the aisle, those closest to her could see the strain in her smile and the slight tremor in her hands as she clutched her bouquet. Her eyes locked with Finn's, and in that moment, a silent communication passed between them. Finn saw the fear and guilt in Lucy's gaze, while she recognized a coldness in his that made her blood run cold. The ceremony began, and the officiant's words washed over the couple without truly registering. Lucy's responses were automatic, her voice barely above a whisper, while Finn's words were clear and strong, yet devoid of the warmth one would expect on such an occasion. As they reached the exchange of vows, a palpable tension filled the room. Guests shifted in their seats, sensing the unease emanating from the couple. Asher stood rigid, his face a shade paler than usual, sensing the impending disaster. When the officiant prompted Finn to recite his vows, he took a deep breath, scanning the crowd before settling back on Lucy. His voice carried through the hushed room, steady but laden with emotion. "Lucy, I stand here today not to recite vows of love and fidelity, but to speak a truth that can no longer be ignored." A ripple of confusion coursed through the guests as Lucy's eyes widened in horror, realizing what was about to unfold. "For weeks I've suspected that the woman I thought I knew, the one I was prepared to spend my life with, has been living a lie." Finn's voice grew stronger, fueled by the pain and anger he had been holding back. "Not just any lie, but one that cuts to the very heart of trust and family." Gasps and murmurs filled the room as Finn shifted his gaze to Asher, who had gone deathly pale. "Lucy, you've been having an affair with my cousin, the man I asked to stand beside me as my best man." The silence that followed was overwhelming. Lucy stood frozen, her bouquet slipping from her fingers, landing softly on the floor. Asher instinctively stepped back, seemingly trying to distance himself from Finn's accusations. "I have proof," Finn said, his voice faltering. "Emails, texts, hotel receipts. While we were planning our future, you two were sneaking behind my back, betraying not only me but everyone here who came to celebrate our love." The room erupted in chaos. Lucy's mother let out a wail of grief, and her father, his face flushed with rage, stood up. Finn's parents sat in stunned silence, their eyes darting between their son and their nephew. Amidst the turmoil, Lucy finally found her voice. She begged Finn to listen, insisting he had misunderstood the situation. But Finn had already reached his breaking point, his heart closed to any further explanations. Turning to the shocked crowd, he apologized for the deception that had led them there, announcing the cancellation of the wedding. His voice echoed through the now quiet room. With a final, pained look, Finn stepped down from the altar and began his lonely walk back down the aisle. As he passed Asher, he paused briefly, his voice heavy with betrayal as he expressed his deep hurt, lamenting the brotherly bond he had once believed they shared. The guests watched in stunned silence as Finn made his way toward the exit. Before he could reach the doors, however, a sudden commotion near the altar captured everyone's attention. Eyes turned back to Lucy and Asher, where a new darker tension was building. In the midst of shocked whispers and confused murmurs, Asher reached inside his jacket. Time seemed to slow as he pulled out a small gleaming object, a concealed handgun. Lucy was the first to react to the alarming turn of events, screaming Asher's name in terror, her face streaked with mascara and fear. Her cry cut through the chaos, causing everyone to focus on Asher, who was now holding the gun with a trembling hand. Finn, alerted by Lucy's scream, turned back, his face full of disbelief at the sight of his armed cousin. Panic erupted throughout the venue as guests scrambled to safety. Some hid behind chairs while others rushed for the exits. The string quartet abandoned their instruments, which clattered to the ground as they fled. Despite the chaos, Finn remained calm, addressing Asher in a steady voice, urging him to reconsider and lower the weapon. But Asher seemed beyond reason, his eyes wild and erratic, rambling about shattered dreams and lost happiness. Lucy, her wedding dress now tattered and stained, slowly approached Asher, her voice trembling as she pleaded with him to stop. For a fleeting moment it seemed her words might get through to him, but Asher's determination quickly returned. The tension hit its peak as he declared there was no turning back. In a blur, Asher's finger tightened on the trigger. Lucy, in a desperate attempt, lunged toward him to disarm him, while Finn sprinted toward them, hoping to protect her. Then the gun fired. The deafening sound of the gunshot echoed through the room, leaving everyone frozen in fear and confusion about who had been hit. Silence hung in the air for a split second, then chaos erupted once more. Lucy fell to the ground, her wedding dress now stained with blood. Finn, forgetting his anger, rushed to her side, cradling her in his arms as panic overwhelmed him. Asher stood motionless, the gun slipping from his grasp, his face blank with shock, unable to comprehend what had just happened. Finn tried desperately to stop the bleeding from Lucy's chest, his voice cracking as he begged her to stay awake. His feelings of betrayal vanished, replaced by a frantic need to save her. Lucy's eyes fluttered open briefly, and in a faint whisper she tried to apologize. Her voice faltered as she coughed, blood trickling from her lips. It was clear that she was slipping away, and her attempts to speak were weighed down by the gravity of her condition. Around them the ballroom was in chaos. Some guests with medical experience rushed forward to help, while others called for emergency services. Asher, still in shock, stood unmoving, unresisting as Finn's father and another guest restrained him. The wait for the ambulance felt endless. Finn, holding Lucy close, whispered words of comfort and forgiveness, desperately trying to keep her conscious. But with each passing moment, her breathing grew weaker, and her responses faded. By the time paramedics arrived, it was too late. Despite their best efforts, Lucy Stevens was pronounced dead at the scene, her life tragically cut short in the very place where she had been set to begin a new chapter. As the police took control of the situation, the weight of the tragedy settled over the once celebratory Rosewood Hills. In the aftermath of the horrific events, the lives of everyone involved were forever changed. Asher Callaway was charged with second-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison, his once promising future destroyed by a moment of jealous rage. Finn, devastated by grief and guilt, left his job in the country and sought refuge in the remote wilderness he had once worked to protect, searching for a solace that remained elusive.